All right, I think we're live. I'm Peter Brusso for 101 Small Business Mastermind. With us today, we've got Bruce. Say hello, Bruce.
Hello, Bruce.
And Dick. Say hello, Dick.
Hi, everybody. Hope everybody's having a good day. I'm looking forward to our podcast today.
Yes, and our guest, Mike Taylor. Mike, say hi.
Good morning, everybody. I'm glad to be here. We're going to talk about some of the fun things I'm doing today, and looking forward to it.
It'll be good. And good morning, Mark.
Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing today?
Everybody's doing good. Good morning, Frank.
Good morning. Anxious to get going.
Okay, we're underway then. We'll get going. I'm going to do a short clip, and then Frank's going to do a short version too, and then we're going to jump right on into our major topic. Yesterday, I'm going to steal Dick's thunder. When we talk about marketing, this is marketing. And this is what's called a handbill, but notice at the bottom it's got a CD-ROM. So we combined the power of a CD-ROM, which will run about 20 minutes worth of video if we wanted to run that much, onto what I call a handbill or a surfboard, right? So this is the low-tech side, and this is the higher-tech side. And the disc is stuck on by fugitive glue, which is going to be the name of our title. So they can pull this off, throw this away, whatever. But Dick is intending to deploy these today at Palm Springs or Palm Desert, something like that.
No, La Quinta Chamber Lunch.
Yeah. Right. So this should be very interesting to see how that all works. And that's my there we go. So the neat thing about this is that it does have the low-tech version of a handbill. But again, carrying the high-tech version of the card, of the CD-ROM, which of course it has clickable sections, boots up, very cool thing to give a full presentation about your business and carried. So we have a mix of just the CD-ROMs or the business card version that we use, and then we make these here, right, desktop printing at its finest, and off we went. And I actually made Dick put it all together. So was it difficult, Dick?
Well, yeah, it wasn't difficult, but it was tedious, especially for someone with my impatient personality. I did destroy a few labels putting them on, but I have to say when I walked out of there and walked home to my wife, her reaction was, "Wow, that's great," and I think it's going to really helped me in my business. Today we're going to hand some out, but I think going forward it's a great tool, and one that I had not thought of. Peter's one who brought it up, and he did all the heavy lifting as far as recording. I just burned some CDs, placed about 90 labels, and then put the other things. But I'm like really excited about it. So, but I think it's going to be a great tool for my business.
Well, the joke was on me, as I think I mentioned before. Here's another version, but the wowie factor when you go to network and you hit them with a business size card CD-ROM, hands down, you will get huge attention. And as we've mentioned before, I think Dick, you've seen it as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. I've been with you at networking meetings, and anytime you've handed that to someone, and I've handed my card at the same time, my card went into their pocket, and they sat there and stood there rather than talk to you about the card and everything. So it is a great attention grabber.
It is
it takes it takes you from the benign paper business card to high tech.
Up there, yeah. Mark's got one up there too. There you go. Yep, that's my new one.
You never throw them away.
Right, and so that's the other jewel. They always seem to hang out because there's a perceived value in them as well. But we had not talked about combining that with a handbill, and so that was the jewel of this week's talk as far as marketing is concerned. Everybody should try that. And the handbill actually is we print 3 of these things on one sheet and cut them. So you get 3 handbills per every 8.5 by 11 glossy piece of paper you use. So that's a pretty cool tool. All right, that's my put. Anybody got any questions on that at all before we head over to the twin and Frank?
No, yeah, I got a question. thinking about, because I didn't know you guys had done that, so I'm seeing it for the first time. It's a networking event, Dick. Where do I put this handbill? I mean, a business card I can put in my pocket. Where do I put this handbill?
You hold
You
it.
could put it in your pocket. You fold it, put it in your pocket.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I never thought about it. Yeah, you could fold it and then, okay. Thank you. That never went there in my mind.
A lot of people carry it around, and I do mention the fact that you can just this is called fugitive glue again. These little glue dots. You probably can't quite see the dots. Well, maybe you can there. And so you can pull it off and throw this away if you want to, but a lot of people don't. They take it as a package.
Good.
And Frank, I know you're feeling on business cards. I have a collector's item. I have one of your last business cards.
We'll keep that. It'll be worth a lot of money.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But the thing of it is, if the person looks at this thing and sees it, different from the other 20 business cards he's going to get, he's going to find a place to put it. Like Peter said, some people carry briefcases. It's not a heavy stock thing that can be folded, put in your pocket. You could take the CD-ROM off of it, put it in your pocket, and fold it. And also, but if they do nothing, if they just carry it around all day, that's not bad either.
No, that's average. No, again, you know how I feel. Different is always better than being better, and that is different. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is. It goes along with what you have to say, Frank. This is a story, right?
It's all about the story.
And this is the story, and I think Mike's going to talk about stories too, about storytelling. So and also, by the way, notice that we have a QR card, so if they have a smartphone, they can go directly to his website as well.
Yeah.
So we're covering a lot of high tech, low tech bases on I call the handbill a surfboard for a disc, and so Dick's actually officially going to go surfing today.
Yeah.
And see what the response is.
Very good.
And the story is. I mean, there's a story of Legal Shield. There's a story of how you benefit from it. It's a 20-minute story if you want to listen to the whole thing. So
cool.
And the other nice thing too is it goes along with what you have to say, Frank. You don't want to keep watching a video that you're not interested in. So we have clickable videos that specifically talk about the thing you're interested in and tell the story. So I think it kind of combines a lot of what you said with a lot of what we know to be true. When it comes down to somebody's interest, they will not wade their way through a bunch of stuff. I want to know what the group benefits are of Legal Shield. I can click and go right there. As it says in my video, time is money, and you don't have any time to waste. You want to go find that piece of information that is most important for you, and these clickable section CD-ROMs certainly do that in spades. All right. Okay, Frank, I'm anxious to hear
I think the longest...
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dick. Go ahead, Dick.
I was just going to quickly... the longest video, I think, is a little over 4 minutes long. So it's, and I think the average is about 2.5 to 3 minutes. So they're all short, hard-hitting videos. So.
Well, I'll go back again to the famous lesson of a direct mail campaign letter. Which is the right size, 3 pages or 12 pages? Most people say 3 pages, and they're absolutely wrong. Because if you're interested in the topic, you want as much information as you can get out of a piece like that. So, and I really say, if you like sex, do you want 3 pages of pictures or 12? Well, that's very clear. People are going to want 12, not 3. And if you're not interested in the topic, it goes in the trash anyway. So longer, in my case, is better, I think. So I don't get fixated on the size or the distance of the film as much as it does it answer a topic and they get to a topic quickly. So that's what I was trying to discuss. Was that? So
to paraphrase an old saying, size does not matter.
Well, I'm actually swinging around saying maybe size does matter. You don't want to not have enough information. I think it's been shown that, I'll say it again, content's king. If you're interested in the content, you want as much, like if you're a collector with, if you're a collector of Corvettes, for example, or a big fan of a Corvette, and you get a 3-page direct mail campaign letter about Corvettes at 3 pages or 12 pages, 3 is just not enough to cover the topic matter of a person who's interested in it. So size in this case, I don't get as concerned. Brevity bothers me. If it's too brief, it's just not enough substance there to get me going. And I think that what Mike does certainly shows that brevity is not necessarily a good thing, but a good story that entertains you, that you're interested in, like you say, Frank, is probably the winning position. So, all right, Frank, how about a twin?
We're ready. Hold on. Love that song. God, I love that.
Love it.
Okay, twin. This week in the news, small business lessons that we can get from the headlines. This week's headline: Walmart to personalize online shopping. Now, for those of you who've been living in, I don't know where you would have lived, let me tell you about Walmart. They have over 11,000 locations. The last fiscal year, which ended in January, they did $615 billion in revenue. They have 2.2 million employees. They are the world's largest public corporation. They have a market cap of $273 billion. Why are they doing it? Why are they personalizing their online shopping? Because they're trying to compete with Amazon. And Amazon has a market cap of $79 billion, maybe 25%, a little more than 25% of their size. Walmart is personalizing online shopping experience for each customer, not for customers overall. And I think a lot of people say, oh no, my website is personalized, and it's not personalized, it's just generalized. And there's a big difference between personalized and generalized. Okay. Walmart will now be able to show shoppers more products based on their previous purchases and where they live. It will show them the local weather and events, and will show them previous searches and purchases, and also make recommendations. Walmart's online sales last fiscal year increased by 30%, even though the smallest portion of their industry. Their stores, over at least 1 year, had 5 straight quarters of declining sales. And this is all leading to a complete relaunch of the Walmart website in 2015. Personalizing websites for each shopper is now the top priority for brick-and-mortar sellers as they try to play catch-up with the online king called Amazon. Okay, so that's a little background. Let's talk about the small business lesson that I was able to derive from this. Now, here it goes. No matter how big you are never too big or too small to make changes. And we are in a changing society. Why did it take Walmart so long to do this? I mean, look how big they are. I mean, they spend more money on pencils than most companies spend on advertising. In my opinion, Walmart believed an old axiom that is no longer as true. You ready for this, Peter?
Mm-hmm.
The axiom that is no longer as true is content is king. Other than Amazon, who has more content in their stores and online? Walmart. But content is no longer enough. Consumers can get all the content they want from the internet. They don't need you for content. Content is no longer king. It is at best just a prince. So then what is king if it's not content? Context is now the king. What do I mean by context? Tell me what you know about me. You know what I've bought. You know what I've searched. You know what I live. You know my age and all those are the demographics. You're telling your customer, hey, I know you. But here's the critical piece. Based on what I know about you, Mr. Individual or Miss Individual Consumer, here's what I recommend. Here's why I recommend that, and here is my opinion of why I think this is valuable to you. And I get to tell you a story that I think is pertinent to you, goes back to the stories, and I build credibility, I build trust, I build intrigue, and I build fascination. And all of a sudden, I go from just a site where I visit to a site now that I've got to see what's the latest. We talked about this with how I feel with Amazon when I buy books online. So don't just give me content. That's no longer valuable to me. Give me personalized context. Context is king. And gentlemen, that's it.
Oh, I can't wait to get on this one. Now, am I Dan Aykroyd or Jane Curtin? I think you're Jane on this one because content still is absolutely king, and you just proved it. It's relevant content. People that bought this also like these other, what are those things? That's content, isn't it? It's relevant content to your purchase. So I'm hands down saying content still king. Anybody else?
Jane, Jane, Jane. Oh, Jane, Jane.
How about this? Can I be in the middle of this?
Sure.
I mean, again, I fully believe content is king. But what I think Frank is saying is how you apply that content.
Oh, of course.
And I think Frank is saying that we need to apply that content in a more personal situation, personal matter. And I think that's where scores.
I agree with that. But again, when we talk about content as king, is that on your website or on your blog, relevant content is absolutely king because you're there to consume that. And in the way that Amazon is using it, and now Walmart's trying to, is like we said before, they're actually moving more relevant content to your eyeballs, which I think is still content is king. If content wasn't king, they wouldn't have much up there. They wouldn't be offering other suggestions because that's all content again. So and it's highly relevant content. So when we write for a website, go ahead, Mark.
Including all the images, all the tags, all the interests, everything is it becomes niches, and it just goes from there.
Exactly. I think one of the other pieces of the puzzle is when you have a website, it's usually monocratic. In the sake of my defenders, you're there to learn about the defenders. I better have relevant content about the defenders. I shouldn't be talking about golf, okay, or something else. It's not relevant for the topic matter. But all right, Frank, that wasn't so bad. I heard through the grapevine.
No. Okay, Jane and Jane 1 and Jane 2. If I can reply here.
Sure.
I can go to Google or Bing and get all the content I want. I can look up whatever you guys want to talk about. What I cannot get from Google, and what is important to me, and what Amazon does, and what Walmart's now going to be doing, they say, hey, here's all the content. Yeah, I'll give you the same content that Bing and Google does. But I'm going to put my value on top. It says, hey, what's what Amazon does when I go to buy a book. It said, hey, you bought this book 3 or 4 months ago. Here's other books that just came on board that you may be interested in. They're giving me additional stuff, recommendations based on their knowledge about me. When I talk about what I'm going to be talking about when prospecting, I talk about my opinions about why I think you do this. They can't get my opinions from Google. I have my opinion. And then I'm going to tell them my personal story. They can't get my personal story. I'm going to tell them my personal story based on the content. Content is the foundation, but I can get the foundation anywhere. Context is what goes on top of the content that makes it valuable, personable, and desirable. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to take Dick's position. We'll be polite to each other, and I believe that the context you're calling is called content that's relevant to you. So I don't want to eat up the time.
Thank you.
That's my input. Let's introduce Mike Taylor. Mike Taylor of newswire.net. A little background, I met Mike through an SEO group, and we had a phenomenal conversation last year on press releases and the power of press releases. And most people think of press releases as being kind of sort of old hat and all this. That's really almost gone full circle. They're almost on the bleeding edge again. And really with the throttling of traffic that Google is doing to websites like mine, then it leaves us very few other options to get some off-board attention in SEO, and the press releases are phenomenal because they work so well. With that intro, Mike, would you start telling us about press releases?
Certainly. Good morning, everybody. The press release, as you say, has really gone full circle. A couple of years ago, we put out our first best-selling book, and it was a group book, and one of the authors wrote about press releases, and I looked at that and went, man, that is so last century. And as you say, it's come completely around, and it's actually gone more than full circle. It's on its second loop right now. The deal with press releases is that they are actually valuable. We're back to the content and context that you guys were just going on about. News is the content that Google wants to serve up. That's what people want right now, is what's happening now. Press releases have that built into their genetics, and places like Newswire have actually a special relationship with Google and the other search engines where their feed goes directly into the Google News feed. And this is why you can literally get a piece on the first page in a minute, often even less than that sometimes, a couple of minutes at the most, and you can rank a news article. The thing about them is that they give you, as you've said, there's all this information that's out there, but it gives you a way to place that within a workable context that, when I say workable, it works for the direction and the purpose of the article that you're writing. One of my one of the things that you have to start off with is that when you talk about press releases are not the same as press releases, are not the same as other press releases. Everybody that's doing press releases has a different ability to place the news. They have different relationships with their distribution partners. Some, like Newswire, are really massive as far as SEO ability. Everything within the Newswire press release is based on SEO. The way the page is laid out, you're forced to scroll to see the rest of the interesting picture, and we really try to get really good pictures that will initially attract your eye. But to make you scroll up and see the rest of that picture, you've just moved. You've just taken an action on that page. And so even if now you go and you hit the back button, you're not bouncing because you've already interacted with the page. We optimize the images, we optimize the image captions, and I can generally rank a press release for the image caption. It's pretty amazing. But the part of it is that they are about stories. And you have all of this information that, as you've said, was, it's freely available. Everything is there. You're really not reporting anything that's completely unknown, or very seldom do you do it. But you're taking these pieces that people could search for, putting them into a context, and creating a new story with new pieces of information. One of the press releases I did that did really overperformed was a guy had a house on the other side of the country. It had been on the market. The market was depressed. He had, I think he was on the market for 6, 8, 9 months and never got a single call. They took it off the market. I did a press release for it, and based on 3 pieces of content. One, that the governor of Ohio, where the house was, had created a new program to help people with mortgage problems. The second piece of information was a report from a realtor's area that the the house market was recovering, and the median size house, a medium price house of $110,000 was appreciating at a 3% rate. The other piece of information was another report that said houses in the $250,000 range were increasing at 9%. Well, the house that I was asked to sell was actually a $250,000 house. So the story came out. Here's the governor. This new program is to help people that are help people in the state with their mortgages. Our housing market is recovering. It's recovering at a 3% rate. But if you look at this one segment here, it's appreciating at 3 times the rate. Why is that? Well, let's look at a house. Here is a house. If you live in a condo, look at this backyard. Your kids can play ball back here. You've got room for your dogs. You've got, lots of room to entertain. Look at the family room here. The nice fireplace. There's plenty of room in here. A great place to sit around with the family and play games in the winter. You've got this beautiful garage. The long and the short of it was that I never said, this house, buy this house. Not once. But the house sold in a week. From the time we launched it, the contract had been signed, and it took a 9-month process of trying to sell down to a 1-week sale through telling a story. Here's the situation. Here's why this is a good deal. Make up your own mind. So that was a particularly fun one. The thing of telling stories really is where the press release shines. If you do a search for native advertising, people are talking about native advertising now, and it's really a big deal. What native advertising is content that's essentially disguised advertising that fits in with the rest of the content. And the better it's done, the more native it is, the less people realize that they're actually being sold. Apparently, less than half people can recognize native content by a poll that was just released. And to that point, I put out a press release earlier this week on a new product that's been re-released. It's a Hangout plugin. It was Google demanded the name back. Hangout. They didn't like somebody else using it, and they leaned on Walt Bayless, and he was re-releasing the product now as RunClick. And so I put out a press release on, here's the deal. Google, this guy had a great product. Google got down on him for the name, and now it's been released, and it's really kind of a nice product. It does these things. And I had several people tell me, going, well, if it's such a good product, why don't you get an affiliate link and advertise it? Well, guys, all of the links in the press releases worked. That was
the advertisement.
It was the advertisement. And the fact that you guys clicked through and bought the thing from that, thank you very much. I appreciate that. But the deal was that I actually had people, and this is not family members, guys. These are marketers that are going, you should put a link in there to that, an affiliate link in there. Okay, so you can't tell. So anyhow, this is where advertising really is going, is native advertising. The more we can wrap our point in a story that resonates with the people, the better chance you have of actually getting to them. I think right now people are so blind a comedy bit the other day said, if you actually click on a banner link, a page comes up that says, "Are you okay? You must have passed out and hit your head on the keyboard. I'm sending an ambulance right now." That's what happens when you click on a banner link. But you tell a story, and people just naturally go along with it. I mean, we've been wired to listen to stories from,
The
when
beginning.
we were in caves. We
Yep.
sat around and we listened to somebody tell about, the hunt that day. That's how we learned. And so that's kind of the way it works. And the nice thing about it is that almost anything that you want to advertise and get out in front of people, you can make into a piece of news. So that's really the deal, is creating a good piece of content. One of the other things that I lean on a lot when I'm talking about press releases is it really bugs me when people write for the search engines. You see the wonderful way that they've managed to stuff 3 or 4 keywords into a headline. It doesn't make any sense, but there's some great keyword stuffing involved in there. And really what it comes down to is that very few spiders have credit cards. And if the whole idea of this is commerce, then you really need to have people involved in the process instead of just the machines. And the only way you're going to get people to read your stuff is actually to put something up there that's written for people. But again, there's just a tremendous number of things that you can write about. And it works real well, not only in the U.S., but I know some of you are in Canada. I understand that the Canadian laws on advertising, especially if you're a professional, are pretty draconian. My understanding is that the Canadian government doesn't feel the average Canadian is able to determine the difference between, in our case, native advertising and real advertising, which seems to be a reasonable thing. And as a result, you're not allowed to, say, hey, I'm better than this other doctor, or I'm better than this other surgeon, or my dentistry is better than the guy down the street. And so what a lot of the successful press releases are doing is taking things that the person involved is doing that matter to people. A press release about one of the doctors who goes to South America or Southeast Asia and does, months tours down there where they're doing facial or dental reconstruction, or fixing some of the horrible diseases and stuff that happen in the jungles. These are great stories. People climb Mount Kilimanjaro while they're off doing this to raise money for these. Those kind of stories get read a lot. And when it comes down to picking your surgeon, somebody that is willing to go and work in the jungles is probably going to do a lot better job in their own office, and probably somebody that you want to look at. And it seems to work pretty well. So
a request. Yesterday we talked a little bit about PDFs and what they have started to do with press releases. You want to talk a little bit about PDFs?
Sure. One of the nice thing about most of the press release services that you get is they'll generate a PDF with a click of a mouse on the particular item, and it drops the whole thing off. You can take that PDF from your press release. And there are a number of places that I like to go. WeSearch, WESRCH.com is actually a pretty fabulous little site. It takes maybe 2 minutes to establish an account, and it takes about 2 minutes to post a PDF. Now, I posted some a couple of weeks ago. I'm giving a class on press releases, and we posted a press release. I generated the PDF, and we posted it on a couple of sites. The next day, I got an email from WeSearch said, "Oh, your press release has been read 100 times." And
Wow.
then the day after that, I got another email that said, "Oh, it's been read another 100 times." The one I did this last week on the promotion, when it had 650 views on Newswire, it had already had 150 views on WeSearch, which was like a 20% increase. And so I went out and I spread it out to some other places, and WeSearch has actually done the best, but other places that work really good are slideshare.com. Let's see.
Daily Motion.
Daily Motion is really for videos and so forth. Where is it? I have a list of them. SlideShare. Shoot.
Well, you send me the list, and I'll put it up on the show notes.
Okay, that would be great, because I've got about 5 or 6 of them, and they're really. I mean, increase your readership by 20 or 30 people, 100 people, couple of hundred people. You know, it only takes like a couple of minutes. It's silly not to do it. But a lot of this is sort of leans on the curation edge of your news. Once you have that content, and you've already placed it in your context for you, Frank.
That would be Jane.
Okay, so anyhow, the nice thing about having all of these pieces of information floating out there is that in the case of the house, how many views did it take? 1. That's really all it took. And so you have plenty of places out here that are happy to give you the extra exposure. And when you go out and you place those things, generally they're going to ask you for the document, a title, keywords, and a description. And each one of those things you can stir up from other publications that you've made, other times you've put this stuff out. And each one of those will give you a little different spin on SEO. It will give you a little bit different links, backlinks, anchor text. And one of the nicest things about the PDFs is when you're looking at distribution in press releases, very often the newspapers that will syndicate your documents will strip out links, especially anchored links. And all you get is the anchor text, and you won't actually get the link behind it. When you put out a PDF, your links are all live. And so it's one way to guarantee that when it does get into somebody's hands, that they are able to follow your stories through. But a lot of the other stuff that we do with the press releases that really helps, I know that this group is interested in SEO, that really helps is that In a Newswire press release, we've got the ability to put in up to 3 links before anybody complains. Plus, there are links attached to the image, links attached to the image caption, which is very, very powerful. I can't stress how powerful image can be. The author's byline has links that sends energy back to your own particular profile. And then you have a sidebar where you can put in virtually any kind of information you want, which also can link back to your documents or your websites or your offer or whatever it is. Each one of those is a very good way to generate traffic, and it by taking your document that you have that's already been optimized and then curating that. A lot of times the simplest form of curation is simply to share an article on Facebook, share it on Google+. Write something about this. Okay, so now you have a chance to actually give yourself essentially another headline, another description, set the context, introduce the actual document, and you're off and running again. Now you've added your own spin to that document, and assuming it's a document that you're interested in promoting anyway, you probably already did that inside. So you can now set that context out and generate more social buzz from it. That same thing works whether you're also posting things to Web 2.0 sites. And I get a chance to look at a lot of analytics, and you'd be surprised how many of the hits coming to a website are generated from some of those Web 2.0, essentially just throwaway couple of minute resubmissions of your document to another site. I really do believe in curation. It kicks butt, and it doesn't take any effort at all.
Yeah, if I can just jump in here, for a lot of people, we call it article marketing, where you take your stuff and you put it out on high PR rank sites and get backlinks into your site, which of course have a high PR backlink, causes authority, and you're off and running. Now, last year we had a phenomenal story, Mike, on a online review site, but everybody will know, and we will not mention the name, but you put out a site just to see how fast things would work, and would you mind telling that story without using their name?
Yeah, that was such a hoot. There is the backstory. I work for a number of online marketers. Because I'm being independent right now, I'm not going to mention Jack or anybody else's name or Jason or any of those folks. But I do a lot of research, and I was doing a lot of the preparation for people that were giving online webinars lessons. I was shooting all of the screens and giving them the notes and testing all of the different services and stuff. And I went through, as part of a deal to test, I think it was video documentation or video optimization. And I set up a bogus company in Texas. I picked the address off of Google Maps, and I believe it was junkyards in the middle of their yard. It was not a real business. I set it up as I forget what the name of the city was, but they're 24-hour emergency plumbing, and put up the the document, put up the video, and I went in and created a business listing for this bogus business based on the fact that it had one video out there. And I went through and I actually did this for like a number of these online listing services. These are ones that when you search for a local company, you'll find there's some of them that always come up. Well, this was one of them, not with the best reputation, perhaps. And shortly after I put that video online, it ranked right away, of course, and I got a call from my account representative at one of these directory services. And he wanted to let me know that he could help me. I think it was $379 they wanted a month to help me with the bad reviews that I had. And I asked him what bad reviews he was talking about, and I went and I looked at my listing, and son of a gun, I am a horrible businessman, and I completely mucked these people over. Apparently they were really upset. And after he started telling me about the advantages of how they could help me correct these things, which according to their documents you can't really do, it's all really natural, but he was willing to help me. And I pointed out, I said, you know, if you really go and look at it, there's nothing there. This was an experiment. This was to see how well we would rank an article in your particular service. And I said, you know, you're a fraud. You know, this is a scam. And there were some very angry words that came over the phone during this whole thing. And by the time we were done, the listing and all of that stuff had completely disappeared, along with the horrible reviews that I'd gotten. But the threat of lawsuits really has kept me from running with that story very much. I've only told it a couple of times, but it was hilarious. It's like, no, we always knew you were a scam. It's like, oh,
yeah. Well, I think the big thing that I liked about the story was you put out a press release on that business, and you know, presto bango. If press releases didn't work, they would have never found you, and they wouldn't. And that was my point. That they not only found you, but they also took the hook, line, and sinker. Great experiment, by the way.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of the stuff that we put out. You get to see some really strong results on. We had. I've had some good successes. I put out a series of PRs about a guy that my wife worked with who was originally from the Philippines, and he's working for a large insurance company. During the Typhoon Haiyan that they had, he raised money, and he'd got like $4,000, and he was on his way to take this money back over there. And I said, Ferdinand, why don't you set up a PayPal address and let me run some press releases and see if we can generate some more money. And the press releases wound up generating about $20,000 worth of PayPal contributions.
Wow.
To one guy, he went from $4,000 to about $25,000 worth of benefit that he could actually bring and put right on the ground. That was a good one. I did one for a charity that my daughter supports, and they had a online bidding application that you could bid on the stuff that they were selling in their live auction, a silent auction, you could bid online. We had, I mean, it's all right here in the counties, but I had like, I think 350 people read the article, and of those, over 200 of them actually watched the video that was associated with it on how to download and set up the application. It was like a minute and a half video. And I'm not sure how much that particular press release and the video amounted to it, but their goal was exceeded by about 15%, and a large portion of the bidding was driven by online bidding before the auction actually started. So I'd like to think that I helped, raise another $15,000 or $20,000, $30,000 for helping children with cancer and blood diseases here in the county. But that's the kind of stuff that you can do with a press release. Is that you can go out and you can reach right into people's hearts if you've got a good story that you can tell, and you can talk about something that has meaning to people. You get them right on board.
And before I open this up, in the old days, press releases were really quite dry. I would say very dry, very almost just factual based. And the change now seems to be more of a storyline. Is that an accurate statement?
Well, yeah, it's an accurate statement. Is the stories are a lot more effective, but the idea of a press release is that it is written in third person. It's not about me. It's not about something that I'm doing. Here's a story about something, and they're written without hyperbole, so there's no weasel words in there, none of the most people say, or world-shattering or earth-shaking, those kind
verbs. Yeah, verbs or adverbs. Yeah, descriptions.
Yeah, the crazy hype stuff. World-renowned. No, let's drop world-renowned out of the guy's description. He's a surgeon who's talking about something. He doesn't have to be the world-renowned #1 surgeon. We're creating authority for this person. We're creating the ability for them to be known. But, would you walk into a party and go, hey, I'm, a world-renowned whatever? No, you come in and you're just you, and you talk about stuff. People get to know you, and that natural attraction happens.
Now, I also know, too, I've written a number of press releases myself, and I'm not an expert at it by any means. I took some classes and learned a little bit, but you really do specialize in writing press releases. So, like next week, I intend to hire you to write a press release for my Defender site. And that's one of the benefits, I think, of getting to know you is that, and you've got the tools there, you actually know the product too. Who better than for you as a third person to write that story? But you can do that with anybody.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I have one. I've got.
There is one right there.
That's my favorite right there. This fits right in my pocket. This one is a little easier to see on camera.
Yes.
But
yeah, a shameless plug for the site. But I think one of the big benefits I'd like you to talk about is how you can take a story and write it effectively for somebody. But now they don't have to do any of the heavy lifting.
Well, yeah, that's true. I have a number of different ways that I work. I like to just publish stuff that people write. I'll go through and I'll clean it up, or I'll completely optimize it. Or for the people that don't like to write at all, you just send me the contact information, the basics of what we're going to do, and I'll contact the client. I'll do an interview with them. I'll pull up find the storyline, get the information I need, and create the whole thing and roll it right out. It's a very easy process for you. You just hand it off, and when we're done, I send you a list of, here's the 100 or 200 places that this has been reprinted, and here's a list of all of the TV and radio station logos that you can now use in your advertising. And you've been seeing in, Miami Herald and the Boston Globe, and people are really quite happy with that. But the nice thing about it is that virtually anything that you want to talk about can be made into news. It can be new markets, new products, new people on your team, new challenges, new legal ramifications of things that are involved in your business, all kinds of stuff. I believe you mentioned that you were having trouble because Google sort of shut you down because your little piece of plastic here is considered to be a weapon. There's so many different ways that we could talk about this without actually bringing up the fact that this is considered to be a personal defense weapon.
Right.
The fact that Google is giving you problems about selling a piece of plastic, that could be the basis for a series of stories. Why is Google afraid of a guy that makes this?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it hurts if you apply it to somebody.
It's interesting, it's not news to anybody. I'm much of a conservative, but I think the liberal concept of self-defense in any form is just not a okay thing. Of course, like the hypocrite Feinstein is, that doesn't want anybody to have concealed handgun permits, but she has one, But in this case, we are starting to see where Google, not unlike that online review thing, starts to manipulate traffic. And unless you pay to play, they're not going to get anything. I actually got an email from AdWords saying I was not allowed to purchase AdWords because this is a weapon. And forget the fact that it's a self-defense weapon, and forget the fact that somebody has to be on top of you and really wanting to hurt you before you ever deploy said weapon. Does not matter. It's an ethical issue. And now, when are they going to start doing, we're the first wave, who's next? And so I think that the press release avenue might be, as we joked yesterday when our conference call, Obi-Wan. You're my only hope, Obi-Wan. And we're going to try Obi-Wan's hope next week, I'm hoping. Okay. That's good. Let's open this up. Anybody else want to ask questions?
Yeah, I have one.
Yes. Okay, Jane, go ahead.
This is Frank. Mike, thank you for the information.
You hear me? I just want to say, are you able to post?
Who's that?
That was Mark. I think he's having internet problems.
I don't understand what's going on.
He's having.
Okay now?
Just hang on, Mark. You're one on the queue.
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead, Frank.
Okay. Yeah. I was under the impression that press releases was for the press, news releases was for the people. Are you using press releases and news releases in the same context?
Yeah. The stories that we release through Newswire, through Small Business Trendsetters, through some of the other outlets I use, those are considered news releases because they have a news bent to them. Once you start talking about a particular company, then that becomes a press release instead of a news release. So I use the terms rather interchangeably. It's probably not accurate. But a news release is essentially a press release that talks about a topic and the The press releases actually come out and will name people in particular. It's really a very small difference in the terms. Now you can take one of these and the documents, and you can send it as an email to your local newspaper. You can turn them into the places that a lot of news sources have, like Citizen News, and you can turn these things in there, and depending on the way the news outlet is actually set up, may actually wind up in hard print. We have our local newspaper I used to work for is Scripps Howard. They have Scripps Howard's just been sold, but they've got newspapers all over the country. Every one of those Scripps Howard newspapers has a Your Community section in their website. You can go in and you can actually put that press release in there in your own community, and it's on their website, and you can say, well, yeah, it's been on the Star Free Press, but when they need content, they'll actually go to that, and if they find something that's pertinent, they will tip it into the actual print document. We did that with some stuff on gardening and some stuff that we were doing, creating some community gardens, and they ran it in the paper because they just needed filler. And so you can do the same thing there.
All right, Mark, you're up next. What was your question?
Yeah. Can you post the PR on the info card?
On an info
But
card.
that would be mine. The answer is yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. No problem at all. You know, we have textual sections you can click and go to. Yeah, you bet.
Exactly. Right. Did you hear that, Mike?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's very few places that a press release won't go. We distribute them as press. We blow them out to a bunch of different newspapers. Radios and TV affiliates are on the distribution lists. It depends on which services you go through. But, you know, you can also take that same story and, like I say, a little bit of curation just by rewriting your headline, rewriting your abstract, and essentially either rewriting your first paragraph or two to create some context, or just introduce a contextual introduction, maybe a middle section where you're doing some analysis of what you're quoting, and then quote big sections of that original document. You can put those things on CNN, you can put them on All Voices, you can put them on, I'll send you a list of the other news sites that I use as well. But each one of those places gives you the panache of being on a real site. When people see, you know, CNN, iReport, they don't, you know, they see CNN. I see iReport, you know,
Right.
but I'm on CNN. You know, the fact that it's user-generated content on CNN is just, that's right over most people's heads. So.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I have one more. Let me see if I'm understanding correctly. Every week I do it's called a twin. This week in the news, and I take a headline and I put my context on top of it, whether it's agreeable or not. Somebody agrees, not agree. It's always my opinion, my analysis of what is happening. Could I turn that into a news release or a press release?
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Well, yeah. You know, any time that you have something that you're adding new to a discussion, you know, that is, you know, if there's a news aspect, hell yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
And
I will.
Congratulations on curating content. That's one of the things that Google really does like.
Yeah, I sure do.
Yeah, I tend to like his slant on the This Week in the News. I always look forward to it anyway. Even if I happen to be the brunt of one of them, I still look forward to it. Frank, Jane? Jane Frank, something like that.
Okay.
Frank and Jane. Frank and Jane. Now we're talking.
There you go.
Anytime you disagree, now you become Frank and Jane.
We got it. All right. Sounds
I
good.
think we just got the title for this particular podcast is Frank and Jane.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions?
Well, again, I just want to give one testament. I mentioned this last week. I got aware of PRs about 5 years ago now, and a guy told me that he was having problems with his Google rankings with his company, and he did a press release, and it raised him up on his Google rankings, and after that, he got plenty of sales. So again, I was about 5 years ago turned on the press release, and I think I was the one that mentioned this a couple weeks ago to Peter, and Peter said yes, it's still very relevant today.
That's absolutely true. I did some press releases, or I did a press release, one, for a school in Texas. They called and they wanted to. They needed help. They're at the very bottom of the 7-Up box. The day after we did the press release, they had, I think, 3 total backlinks in 5 years, according to Majestic.
Nothing.
They got 3 more from the press release. It moved them from the number 7 to the number 2 spot. I curated that document, and the next day they had moved to the number 1 spot of the 7-Up box from a press release and then a Web 2.0 backlink from Tumblr. That's all it took.
For the listeners that don't understand what a 7-Up box is, anytime you do a search, you'll get some paid ads, you'll get a couple, 2 or 3 organic ads, and then there's a box of local data, and that's called the 7-Up box, and or the 7 box, as I like to call it. But yeah, but that's incredible that you can move them up to the top like that. That's cool.
And
Any other questions?
Just a couple of days.
Yeah, that's crazy. Frank and Jane, any other questions?
My mind is racing with
have a
possibilities
mutual.
here.
Well, it's interesting too. I might note, you've been hammering away at tell a story, tell a story, tell a story. Boy, is this a story on steroids?
This is awesome. This has been tremendous.
The greatest hidden secret we could ever bring to people that watch this or the people that follow this podcast is Mike Taylor and the concept of Obi-Wan helping us all out with something that literally feeds the giant, because that's their food. It's relevant content, but in a very clever way. And a very real way, too, that's not fake, but it's a story. And people like the stories, as Frank always says, tell a story. Everybody's got one. Find yours, and Mike is going to find mine next week. That's what I'm going to do.
I'm looking forward to it. I've had a really good summer with press releases. We did a series on a guy who is his big deal is selling information on how to flip houses.
Right.
Well, he made so much money that he was giving a house away, and we did a series on he's given the house away. He's given it to this guy's charity in Ohio, and it's going to this lady. It just exploded. It absolutely exploded when you started talking about here's a guy who's giving away a home to charity. Here's a guy that his charity is going to. He was, he's got a story of being great, getting in trouble with the police and bringing himself back up into society's good graces, and this lady that's getting this advantage. It wound up actually creating so much local buzz in Columbus that they had 3 different TV stations there, ABC, CBS, and NBC, I believe, taping the actual giveaway.
Wow.
And so this went from 3 press releases to 3 TV stations, and that's not the first time that's happened. We did a story on a guy who created a key tag that's it's called the ICE key tag in case of emergency, and it's got a place that it's very prominent. Put your number here, call these people. He had a story about his mom. She had an aneurysm. She was found on the floor. She was conscious, but she couldn't move. 4 or 5 hours later, she slipped into a fatal coma, and it was 7 hours before anybody called the son and the daughter who were right there. They did not get a chance to see their mom before she died. We wrote the story on this. The next day, he was invited to be on Good Morning Texas.
Wow.
And they were going to give him 3 minutes. And by the time I looked at the clip, 9.5 minutes. 9.5 minutes. They had a table with all of his stuff laid out on it, all of the different products he had. The woman that was interviewing was in tears. She was just pouring tears down. He told me it tripled his business overnight.
I can believe that. And that goes back to a bit of Frank harkening about what a great story, huh, Frank?
It's all about the story.
Yeah, there you go. Hey,
love stories.
Now, Dick, I want to ask you a question here. Don't you think that Ageless Secret could really benefit from a press release?
Oh, geez, absolutely. It would do wonders for him, but you have to handle that, Peter.
Well, of course, but
yeah,
but I've mentioned it to them before as well that he's got a product that just simply works, and I think it's a newsworthy product too. But we just need to hammer it out with Mike and see if I can get those two guys together. All right. Well, we're running a little on the long side, guys. Go ahead.
Just quickly, Peter, if he just took his interview on the local NBC station and turned that into a press release story, it would be unbelievable. It would be seen around the world from what Mike is saying. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, maybe Mike, we ought to do a press release on using these for networking, huh?
That's a good idea. Is that your product?
That's my product.
Okay,
that's one of my products. But
then there you go.
Yeah, that's well, we're going to see what Dick his experience is today.
Right.
I mean, I know what mine's been, but don't trust me on anything. Go experience it yourself. Taste your own tea, so to speak. And so we're going to find out how Dick does with that. And then what I'd like to suggest is that we hook up next week. I'll send you some cash, and let's try to jam one of these out on the Defender site. And I know what the traffic is, and I know what it historically has been. So I'm a perfect client to prove the power of a press release, I think, anyway. And we can have you on a subsequent session after we get some data back from that.
Yeah, I'd like to see what you get. I know for a fact that I generate traffic from Newswire and the other affiliates that we put stuff out, and when you're dealing with warm traffic, it's always good.
And what I'd like to do too is that once you write the press release, before it goes out, I want to send it to Frank and see what Frank thinks about the story. Would that be okay with you, Frank?
Oh, that'd be awesome. That'd be tremendous.
You've been very helpful on the stuff that I've done. You're very instructional on the stuff I've done, and I know that I'm too close to my own stuff. So I use quite frequently, Mike. I use Dick and Frank as a sounding board. What do you think? What do we got to change? That kind of thing. So that'll be fun. All righty. Anybody else with questions? Nope. All right. Then let's say goodnight, Dick.
Good night, Dick.
Good night, Dick.
Good night, Dick.
Go on, gentlemen.
Thanks for being on, everybody, and just hang on. We'll stop this podcast. Hang on.